often what we are working with is adults who are playing doubles that are super keen and finding a way of motivating them to do the off-court work. Because, and currently the situation is that, most places around the world, you can't even be on a court, or if you can, there's only two players allowed, or one person having a lesson and so forth. So, what are some of your thoughts and on the importance of the things that you can do off the court to improve your game on court?
Well, I think it's important because it gives you more information. And so it helps you put the pieces of the puzzle together about your game and how to improve and where you want to go. So for me in particular, growing up, I watched a ton of video of many players, but I always found that whenever I saw something that I liked or it was a player that I liked, then I retain the information better when it's just rather than it being just anyone. So when you kind of have watched somebody play and you respect how they play or you respect them as a person, whatever, then I feel like whatever they do well, you remember more and then you're more motivated to try it too.
Hmm.
So that's one thing that I would recommend is like even if you do watch videos of other people, make sure it's somebody that you admire because I think then you're more inspired to emulate them.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
I mean, I also do a lot of video work on myself because there are lots of things that I don't see when I'm on the court and I don't feel that I'm doing something wrong. A coach or a parent, they'll be like, "But you're doing this wrong," and I'll be like, "But I don't feel that." But then I see it on video, and then I'm like, "Oh, I get it. I wasn't turning this much. I wasn't low enough on my legs. My base wasn't wide enough. My footwork was sloppy here." And it's things that in the moment I don't recognize, but looking back, I see it and I'm like, okay. But seeing it then helps me feel it. And so then when I go back on court, I can make those adjustments. It's hard to make those adjustments when you don't really understand, the mistake that you're making and then how to correct it.
Hmm.
So, I mean, there's so many things you can do off court though. Like that's just in terms of video work for yourself and for others. But even just like small band workouts for little injuries, like to be disciplined with those,
Hmm.
that's not easy. The physios on the WTA tour always tell us it's better to do them um, short but often. So,
Oh,
morning and night. And it doesn't need to be long, but just do it and get into the habit of doing it and it'll help, stabilize the muscles that are crucial for you to stay injury free. And it's just a matter of doing it, but it's not always easy to do it. So the more you can force yourself, then the better habit you create to, be able to maintain long term. So,
hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting point to do these exercises more often because I know myself as well. You get injured, all of a sudden you're having to do these exercises and it's long and painful. But if you more often get them done, 15 minutes at a time,
that's
then
right.
it becomes a little easier, hopefully.
Yeah.
How do you sort of plan around your days normally in a regular type environment? Do you have your set schedule for your fitness workouts, for your tactical, for your video, for your own court, or is it sort of dependent on the time of year and what you need?
Um, it can depend. I usually have a set time for fitness and tennis, and then in terms of looking at video, it's a little bit more when I have the proper time to do it because after that, after my training day is done, sometimes I have to go to physio, I have to go to acupuncture, things like that. So, and those times vary a lot. So then it's just more like in the evening, but it's not necessarily a set time. So it just depends on what works for that person, but sometimes setting aside a set time is what's necessary. Like I know for me, in terms of like to do a meditation, if I don't put it in my phone and I don't have an alert on my phone that says do it now, I'm not going to do it. So I find that on the really important things that again are part of that discipline, part of that routine, you kind of need a little bit of reinforcement sometimes to help you do it.
They use technology in a positive.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, limit the screen time and use it for something
All
useful.
that. Yeah.
So, and you've had some great success in mixed doubles. Just going back to mixed doubles a little bit here. And so, tactically, you hear coaches talk about a variety of sort of options when you're playing mixed doubles, always hit with a weaker player and so forth. How much of the sort of traditional double strategy gets thrown out of the window when you're playing against a player that's, let's say, stronger and weaker?
Um, I think it matters like to a certain extent, but mixed doubles is so fast paced that sometimes you don't have time to think. And so it just goes based on instinct. And sometimes that means hitting to the stronger player because also what we notice happens in mixed doubles is um because the male player wants to sort of take over the court in some moments that they leave gaps.
Oh,
Like, so their normal positioning changes and they try to cover more of the court, but then there's another gap. So sometimes it's even good to play near the guy player because he's maybe trying to move to cover his partner.
mhm, mhm,
So it just kind of depends because some male players don't do that as much. It really depends on the player and what their
right,
tendencies are.
right.
So you just kind of have to see, how they manage the mixed doubles like partnership.
That's a very good point. Yeah, you never thought of that really. But yeah, if the guy's moving out of his way to take some balls, or then he's probably leaving something else open. I
Hmm.
mean, for me, watching mixed doubles is quite interesting as well because you often will have the female player stay stronger under pressure. I'm finding, and obviously it's not always the same, but I've watched a lot of matches where in that tight situation, all of a sudden the girls are going for it, hitting out, whereas the guys are a little more tentative because it is different pressure for the guys as well, right,
Yeah,
as well as for
that's
you girls.
that's so true. Yeah. And so I feel like also we want to prove ourselves and step up and do the best that we can in that moment and prove that we're also like part of this team and capable and stuff
Of
like
course.
that. And I find like sometimes for some guys it's very difficult to return a girl serve because they're not used to the spin and the trajectory change,
Mhm.
because of the height difference and the amount of power that like a girl can generate over a guy. So that's another part where I've noticed that sometimes guys struggle with a girl serve just because they're so not used to the ball being that much lower and actually having to generate their own pace from, below the ball or just from less pace. So
Mhm.
it becomes a very tricky sort of thing. And then of course the ego part comes into it. And then sometimes they take it too seriously or they put too much pressure on themselves to be like, oh well, how can I be missing like the girl serve? But at the
Mhm.
same time it's like, no, it's not a big deal. It's just you don't see that ball, just like I don't see a 120 something mile an hour serve come at me consistently, and yet it is. I also am trying to adapt differently, so it's just it's just a matter of like how you adjust to those things, and it can be very tricky.
Sounds like it. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, like you said, that's the fun in it, and there's a
Yeah.
different sort of aspect to the game. You have more ego involved, and yeah, no, but it's interesting. It's awesome. Um,
Hmm.
how did you transition from playing more singles to more doubles, or when did that sort of love for doubles grow for you?
Well, it was probably in my early 20s. I was stuck at around 200 in the world in singles, and I couldn't afford a coach
Mhm.
to really take my game to the next level. There was only so much I could do with a kind of like homegrown type of tennis and traveling and just trying to wing it. It wasn't really working for singles. You really do need a full-time coach to help you, to be your eyes, to notice your blind spots,
Mhm.
and so for me there was a moment where it kind of came to be like, well, I don't really know what to do. Like, I can't really survive playing tennis, staying at 200 because you don't make enough money to be able to invest in yourself.
Mhm.
But I was going much further in the doubles draws pretty consistently. And so it just occurred to me that maybe there was an opportunity for me to pursue doubles and be able to make a living out of tennis and to make it to all the big tournaments. And maybe that was my chance to down the road make the Olympics, because the Olympics has always been my number one goal.
Hmm.
And so then I started to make that transition. I started to sacrifice more singles. My doubles ranking improved. But as I got further in the doubles tournaments, that meant I couldn't make it for qualifying in singles for the next week. So therefore, my singles ranking was dropping and dropping and dropping. I wasn't able to maintain it. But my doubles ranking was getting better. And I was lucky enough to play with some really great girls and just get to where I wanted to be over time. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's not easy,
Yeah,
because it was also a matter of me putting my ego aside as well, um, and kind of just rolling with the punches and trying to figure out how to be a professional tennis player while still making money,
of
because at
course,
the end of the day, we're all trying to still support ourselves.
of course.